31st digital dispatches, and today we'll do a review and an update on some of our digital programs that we have going on across HSC, and thanks very much. Dan has come along today to present on that. So without further ado, Dan, if you want to kick off.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dawn. So firstly, I should say Happy New Year to everybody who has joined us here on the 5th of January. If you are watching this video at a later date on the DHCNI TV channel, then thanks for your interest in this session today. As Dawn said, this is our 31st Digital Dispatches session. We've been doing these things now for over 2.5 years. Our inaugural one of these was back on the 4th of June in 2021. And these are our regular checkpoint with anyone across the HSC who's interested in digital. I'm going to bring up some slides here for our session today. Dawn, just confirm to me that you can see the slides there.
Yes, I can see those, no problem.
Yeah, perfect. So as Dawn said, the topic for today is an update, a bit of a briefing really, on our digital projects and programs. The last time that I gave a bit of a briefing like this was back in May, on the 5th of May, actually, last year. And in that session, for those of you who can remember, we talked about the projects and programs that are in our investment pipeline, just at the highest kind of macroscopic level. For those of you who were able to dial in for that session, you'll recognize this little icon here, like a rocket on its side almost, that shows on the left-hand side those projects that are really at the inception phase, their ideas or requirements, and then the projects in the block in the middle that are going through the development of a business case and the justification of the allocation of some funding within our investment envelope. The wee grey bar there, that's where we then get approval for the spend, and then on the right-hand side is the number of projects that are in the delivery phase, where we're actively going through the implementation activities for a particular technology project. So I talked in that session back in May about the work that was going on in that portfolio of investment in financial year 22-23, so up to the end of March 23. Talked about at a macroscopic level some of the numbers that we'd invested in both capital and revenue in that financial year. And I also talked about the beginning of our plan for financial year 23-24, the one that we're in at the moment. And again, for those of you who were able to make that session, I also talked about 12 areas of focus in our difficult fiscal situation that we find ourselves in as a healthcare economy today. What are the sorts of things that the digital teams are doing to try and maintain momentum on those digital investments? So today is my next update. So this is the beginning of calendar year 2024, also the beginning of Q4 in financial year 23-24. So we're coming towards the end of this year of investment activities. And what I thought I would do was, again, just talk a little bit about that macroscopic level. How much money are we seeking to invest this year? But just based on some feedback that I got from that last session I did in May, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and go through in a little bit more detail what the investment program involves. And I'll try, in doing that, I'll try to answer these 6 or so questions. So what are we investing in and in what areas? What progress are we making? What's coming up next in this financial year, just in Q4? What are the current risks and issues relating to all of that technology work that we're doing? How do things appear to be shaping up for next financial year, starting on the 1st of April? And ultimately, why is all of this good for the HSC, for our health and social care system in Northern Ireland? My plan would be then to come back in Q1, so probably in 3 or 4 months' time, with an update to close out on this financial year and a confirmation of our plans for next year. I'm hoping just to be talking for about 20 minutes. Maybe if I bang on a little bit, we might be half an hour of presentation. and then any questions that you guys will have will then finish off our session today. Feel free to type your questions if you have them while I'm speaking into chat, and then Dawn can help choreograph that when we get to the Q&A session at the end. So what are we investing in? For those of you who haven't had a chance to look at it so far, we launched a digital vision and strategy for health and social care in Northern Ireland in October of 2022, so a good wee while ago now. If you are able to get your smartphones out and hover over the QR code that you can see on this page in my presentation, it'll take you to a mini site on the Department of Health website, and on there you'll be able to find the overarching digital strategy, which is the larger document represented here on this slide on the right-hand side, but also the child documents, the data strategy, the cybersecurity strategy, and the innovation strategy. There's also an easy access video and a summary document that pulls all of this together into a sort of 10-page, 15-minute read. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at those things, they're a quite useful introduction to what are we investing in. Just thinking about that picture, the wee rocket icon that we use, the investment portfolio from ideas on the left to implementation and closure on the right-hand side. The numbers, the scores on the doors, if you like, at the highest level at the tail end of last year were 44 projects in active implementation stages, and 38 projects were going through the process of development of a business case and the business justification. And then there was a reasonably significant number, 50 or so ideas or requirements that were in the inception phase. As we look today at those same numbers, they've all risen a bit. So the number of projects that are in active implementation has gone up to 47. There are 33 projects that are in the closure stage. There are 40 projects where we're developing a business case, and we've had a pretty significant number of new requirements that are sitting in the backlog. We haven't got capacity to address these yet, but they're going through that kind of prioritization activity to work out what are the more important requirements for us to need to respond to, either from a departmental transformation perspective or in terms of both clinical and statutory or regulatory changes within the health and social care system. As I said earlier, these numbers then break down to multiple different individual phases, and the image that you can see at the bottom of this slide is part of the portfolio, the investment portfolio reporting toolset that we would use to give our executive stakeholders a sense of where we are and the movement through those different stages of our implementation lifecycle. So that's all great. We've got slightly more projects that we were doing at the start of this financial year. Good macroscopic view. But what does this really mean? What areas are we investing in? Where are those technology changes going to help us in the way that we deliver health and social care services in Northern Ireland? And I'm going to use a picture that I haven't used in a wee while, just to try and help understanding of where these investments are being made. I'm going to build a view on this slide with our population, most importantly, the people who we serve as a health and social care economy at the core of the work that we're doing. I'm going to build just a really simplistic view of the different areas that we need to think about in the way care is delivered and the way, in particular, technology helps us in delivery of care and what that means in terms of some of our investments. So the first bit that our population interact with is primary care, including the primary care aspects of urgent and unscheduled care. So that includes our GPs, our dentists, our pharmacists, our optometrists, also some of our ambulance services would it be in that core of the kind of population facing activities. There's then, from a technology perspective, the longitudinal view of all of the care that we deliver in Northern Ireland, and in that space historically we've seen NIECR, the Northern Ireland Electronic Care Record, be a key enabler of access to that longitudinal view of care in primary care and other care settings. And then, really importantly, we've got our secondary care sector, our delivery trusts, including their bits of urgent and unscheduled care, the EDs and urgent care centres. The other care organisations I've represented on the left here are things like care homes and hospices and prisons in which our trusts deliver care services, and other care settings are things like intermediate care, things like hospital at home. And obviously within our delivery trusts, we've got acute physical care, mental health, community services and social services represented by those green boxes. All of these care professionals delivering amazing services every day generates a lot of data. We then, as technologists, build data analytics capabilities across individual organisations and more broadly across the region. We then have our regional systems that provide our front office or clinically enabling services. So I'm thinking there about things like the Health and Care Number Index, electronic master patient record, and NHAIS that maps that against GP practices and GP records. But in there's also things like the vaccine management system that we built recently that's used across Northern Ireland and delivered once for those front office enabling services. We then have our regional systems that support our back office activities. So these are HR, payroll, procurement, logistics, those systems that allow our businesses to operate. Building on that, then we have our technology shared services, the digital shared services. So these are things like hosting services, centrally hosted applications, our central and regional network provision, our digital workplace, the way that we deploy devices within local organisations and within BSO, and how we use Microsoft technology to provide both collaboration and productivity tools. And then on the right-hand side of this bar, you can see there's our cybersecurity services that are enabled centrally, procured centrally, and often deployed both centrally and locally. And then finally, just to finish off this picture, there's transformation and innovation. So there's a whole bunch of different transformation priorities that we have as a sector in Northern Ireland, including departmental strategies, but also more local innovation and transformation within our organisations, and then the overarching governance and management. How do we keep a handle on all of those technology requirements and all of the money that's required to feed into the system to enable the technology to be successfully delivered and to drive success in these different parts of our overarching sector? So that's just a quick mind map of different bits of our system. And the reason that I drew that picture, and I've just taken the colour out of it there to make it easier to overlay some of the investments that we're making, so people who maybe aren't as familiar with our investment portfolio can build an understanding over time through this discussion and later discussions about the sorts of projects and programmes and therefore systems that we're delivering and how that fits across that delivery architecture. So the first one I'll talk about is NIDIS, the Northern Ireland Digital Identity Service. This is a project, like many others I'll talk about, being delivered by colleagues in the Business Services Organisation IT Services Directorate, and this replaces our Health and Care Number Index and eventually our NHAIS system. So the techies refer to these as the canonical EMPI, the Electronic Master Patient Index, and that's where we hold a single identifier for all patients in Northern Ireland, for all citizens in Northern Ireland, that they use then their health and care number, which is unique to them as individuals. The replacement project is underway. I'll talk a little bit more in a few minutes about the work that we've been doing this year on that particular project. So that's one that fits into that regional systems clinically enabling front office. I'm sure all of you will have heard about the Encompass programme. So this is both in secondary care, but also in that longitudinal care record enablement and care transition management between primary care and other care settings, where we're deploying a single platform, a single electronic care record across acute physical care, mental health, community services and social services, and that's made available to GPs and other care organisations to create a single system with a single view of the patient across all clinical care settings. Also in secondary care then, we're doing the laboratory information management system replacement, which is part of the modernisation and transformation of pathology and laboratory services. We're replacing the system that we use to store and then convey and analyse all of our imaging, our X-rays, our MRs, our CTs. So that's our PACS system. So NIPACS Plus is the replacement of all of that medical imaging technology and supports the work of our radiographers and radiologists. Going up then to the regional systems again, thinking about the back office, the management of our businesses. Equip is the program that we're delivering at the moment to replace back office finance, procurement, logistics, and HR and payroll systems onto a single converged cloud-based platform that allows us to modernize the way we support those back office services. Moving into the digital shared services space, then, the Evolve program is a series of changes that we're going to make to create a single employer for all of our technology colleagues, moving into a single organization, which helps us both to address issues that we have with attracting and retaining all of the technology talent that we need to deliver all of these technology programs and services, but it also helps us to converge some of our technology decision making and platform choices onto a more standardized and consistent set of technologies. For a place the size of Northern Ireland, it's appropriate to try and converge onto a more consistent set of technology choices and architectures. Moving then onto the right hand side of the picture, we've got the cyber security program. So this is a single investment program to modernize the way we protect and secure our systems and the information that we're responsible for on behalf of our patients and citizens. So that cyber program will deliver things like a central operations center for monitoring cyber activity, and also some new tooling to try and help protect our systems and detect threats and react to those threats when they become apparent. I've run out now of our funky little logos for our programs, so I've got a series of other investments that we're making that I'll cast around the various different parts of this sort of conceptual architecture. So again, in the technology space, we're delivering a refresh of our regional Wi-Fi technologies. We are deploying new devices. We're refreshing the computers and end user devices that we all use every day to do our work. We are refreshing the technology, the server side and storage technology that we have in our centralized data centers. We've got something called the Technology Enablement Project, which is where we are changing the way we deploy Microsoft technology, moving from on-premise to in-cloud deployment of Microsoft licenses and associated productivity and collaboration tools. We've got something called the MSEA, the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. So that's the renegotiation and signing up again to our licensing arrangements with Microsoft, who are one of our biggest providers of technology. And then the Digital Workplace Programme is how we're going to try and drive forward the way we deliver that modernized both device and software experience, so that we can use technology in a really flexible way across multiple different locations to interact seamlessly with colleagues and collaborate with different organizational entities across the whole of the Northern Ireland healthcare sector. We're delivering in the front office regional systems then a number of new projects at the moment. We are going to be archiving the data in all of the existing clinical systems that are replaced by Encompass, so that we've got a single place to store in the longer term all of the information that's currently stored in the multitude of different systems that are being replaced under the Encompass program. We're delivering, as I mentioned earlier, the vaccine management system, which is a new way of recording vaccines for COVID, as well as other parts of the vaccine and inoculation programs. From a screening perspective, we're upgrading the National Breast Screening Service, and ultimately we will begin to think over the next wee while of replacing all of the older technologies that we use for the multiple different screening programs in place in Northern Ireland. Moving down the picture then into the primary care part of it, we are delivering a GPIT modernisation programme over a number of years to change the way we buy and deploy GP practice management systems and other technologies that support the work that our GPs do. We're delivering a project to understand whether we can have an omni-channel transformation of how people interact with GP services. What does that mean? Well, looking at the way all of our GP practice staff members, in particular the care navigators, the front desk secretaries, how they do triaging of demand that's growing and coming towards the GPs, and whether we might be able to use both telephony technologies and maybe some web access channels to just change the way some of that demand is met and lands on the desk of the GPs. We're delivering a new way of GPs to interact with labs services, with a new order communications integration between the GP practice management systems and the new modernised laboratory information management systems, and how that integrates with EPIC, the thing that we're deploying as part of the Encompass programme. We're modernising pharmacy services, and that will see us deploying a similar electronic care record to the thing that we're doing in Encompass, but it will be for our community pharmacists so that they can deliver some of the pharmacy first services on behalf of the health and social care sector. I've represented some of the ambulance service technology projects in this primary care layer, although they are obviously a provider trust in the same way that the hospital services trusts are. But the NIAS guys are delivering a new computer-aided dispatch IT system and transformation, and also looking at their telephony services and modernising those as they go along. In the data analytics layer, there's lots of exciting work going on at the moment. Most of you will be familiar with something called the General Practice Intelligence Platform, which is centralising codified information from the GP practice management systems, the hundreds of individual systems there, and putting it into a single place so that we can do population level analysis and play back that population level analysis to the GPs in an enhanced set of data analytics. We're also implementing a new set of data capabilities, not seeking to centralise data analytics. That should be, by its very nature, really diffuse across all of our organisations, and it should be a skill set that we're seeking to develop everywhere across the HSC. But the Data Institute will be a series of platforms and capabilities and skills that will allow us to get better at using the data that we hold about our patients for the good of the patients and also for the good of our organisations and our sector as a whole. Moving up then to the back office and just finishing off my picture here, we've deployed a new learning management system, the way that we all access our training as professionals as part of our continual professional development. And recently we've done some good work around the implementation of a unified costing system, so we get a better handle on the costs for delivery of care in the HSC. So that's just a really quick canter through a sort of conceptual architecture of the different bits of our health and social care system, with a bit of a technology lens, and then overlaying on that the investments that we're making as part of our digital investment portfolio. What I'm going to do now is answer my question: what progress are we making? So what's going on with all of these projects and programs and investments that I've been talking about so far today? What you can see on screen here is an extract from a very large 2A3 page plan that captures all of the individual milestones for all of the projects that are in our implementation portfolio, and sets them all out next to one another, building in there the dependencies between those different milestones where one project is dependent on another. That allows us to then build a critical path through all of our delivery activities to make sure where there are changes to dates as things slip or delays occur, what impact that has through that understanding of our critical path across the whole of the delivery portfolio with our tens and tens of individual projects. And that allows us to keep a better level of control on the work that we do. My plan today is not to run you through all of that detail. I'm actually just going to summarise, rather than looking at all of those individual milestones, what's been going on this year. And I'll do that on a quarter by quarter view. So in quarter one, so that is April, May and June of last year, 2023, we delivered the regional Wi-Fi enhancements, device refresh and data centre projects. So they were all finished, and that's about upgrading some of our central and deployed infrastructure. We continued the configuration of the system, the application for the Encompass rollout. That's called the EPIC system, the EPIC Electronic Medical Record. And that work was preparing us for our go live, our planned go live in the South East Trust, which came a little bit later on last year in November. I'll talk about that more in a second. We began to think about our second site that's going live on the Encompass system, which is Belfast, and they'll be going live in the early summer of 2024. So we began our readiness sessions to make sure that Belfast were aware of that project and what it meant for them and their staff members. The NIPAX thing, the medical imaging project, we finished off a good deal of our technical testing and the final planning and preparation for the early go lives of the replacement of our medical imaging technologies that were due to happen in the summer there. We established the GP Labs Order Comms project and found some funding for development and approval of the business case. The data archiving project, what are we going to do with all of the information in the legacy systems that are going to be replaced by the Encompass application? So that project was established, and that's being jointly led between the Digital Health and Care Northern Ireland team and our friends at Queen's University. And I mentioned on the previous slide the learning management system that went live for our staff to be able to access training in that new application. And also the Encompass team began uploading and configuring their training that they needed to deploy to the South East Trust staff before go live. So that was Q1. Thinking then about Q2 of this year, so that's July, August and September, NIPACs went live across a subset of HSC sites in July. That's a really big moment for that project to begin to get the new Sectra technology both centrally deployed and also deployed across a number of the hospital sites that had previously used Sectra. We continue to make progress on go live readiness for both South East and Belfast for Encompass, and in Q2 things were beginning to look pretty good, pretty bolted on for the go live dates that we had agreed upon in Q3. The core LIMS confirmed its go live dates as well, supporting Encompass. There was an alignment from a timing perspective between core LIMS and Encompass. We secured funding for the e-pharmacy programs to enable continued preparatory work in this year, 23-24. And the NIAS guys successfully completed the migration onto the new telephony platform, and that project then moved through into the closure stage. So a really successful summer. And then thinking about Q3, so the latter part of last calendar year of 2023, people say that sometimes a week in politics happens in a year. Well, this was definitely a year of politics happening in a week. So we had a very busy time in late October where NIDIS, the replacement of our canonical electronic master patient index, went live. And then in a single week, the week of the 6th of November, we then had the week that was, the core LIMS went live in the Belfast Trust on the Monday. And then together, the core LIMS and the Encompass Epic system went live in SET at 4 o'clock in the morning on the 9th of November. And then pretty much straight thereafter, I put down here, it was on the Friday, but frankly, it happened on the Thursday too. NIPACs plus phase 2, which is the enablement of non-core imaging modalities. So normally we've got CT and MR and X-ray, and we all understand those, and they get fed into the packs, and that's fine. But there's lots of other imaging and different file type data sources in a hospital. And with the improved workflow capability that Encompass brings with it, we were able to then enable the capture of multiple different file types, endoscopy, for instance, and then put that into the packs in a DICOM standard format. So that went live on the Friday. The Equip program, which is just as a reminder, the replacement of our back office systems, they successfully selected their preferred software vendor, Oracle, which is going to be a replacement for HRPTS and FPL, and they issued the tender for the systems integrator. So some really big milestones there for the Equip program. We finalised some of our key sizing decisions for the real-time clinical access to legacy systems, part of the archiving project, and that's moved forward. We issued the tender for the NIAS computer-aided dispatch, the CAD solution. We implemented the unified costing system. We continued our negotiations with Microsoft on the renewal of our Office 365 licenses, that MSEA thing that I'd mentioned earlier on, and made good progress there on the business case. We did good data protection impact assessment work for phase 1 of the NBSS project, the National Breast Screening System, and we approved some new projects, the GP Access Pathfinder, the GP Out of Hours support, and some work that we're doing around patient travel costs. So really busy Q3. So what's coming next? We're now sitting right at the start of Q4, January, February and March this year, leading up to the end of the financial year and the beginning of financial year 24-25. So we're going to continue the preparations, building on the successful implementation of Encompass in the South East Trust for the Belfast Trust, that's due to go live in June, and then later on this year in the Northern Trust. Core limbs, go live planning and preparations for the latest trusts in collaboration with Encompass is continuing, as well as the same for NIPAX Plus Phase 2. The NIAS Reach EPCR regional go lives due to occur in the next few months, and the CAD implementation, the computer aided dispatch implementation, is due to make progress towards its completion over the course of the rest of this year. NBSS, the National Breast Screening System Release 1, is due to be ready for implementation. Equip, final business case and software vendor contracts are due to move forward, as is the vaccine management system business case for continued operation of that in the PHA. And we'll finalise our Microsoft deal just in the next couple of months, really, with an approved business case, and then finalising the contracts and procurement for Microsoft licensing for the next 3 years. So that's the remainder of this financial year. Thinking then a little bit about risks and issues, I'm showing you here another view from the tooling that we use to communicate the progress through our investment portfolio to our executive stakeholders. You can see these kind of funny checkerboard images on this slide. This is a representation of all of the projects that are in active delivery. There are 48 of them. On the left-hand side, split between small, medium, large, and extra large size projects based on their total business case cost. You can see we've got green, amber, and red assessments that are submitted by our project management leads, and that's their assessment of where they are. The red ones are those projects that have got kind of intractable problems where they're struggling to be able to meet their budget envelope or their key milestones. On the right-hand side, the portfolio team then take a view that says, OK, those projects that are struggling a little bit, do they have a broader impact on the overarching portfolio and goals of our technology investment plan? Or is it that that project might be able to get through its issues and be able to then deliver without impacting on any of the critical path items? So the portfolio then takes a view of the same red, amber, green status. And you can see on the right-hand side, we're in really good shape. There's lots of green and amber on there. For the large and very large, the extra large projects, 14 of 22 are either in green or amber from a portfolio perspective, which is really encouraging. There are 8 that are considered red. And I'll talk a little bit just about some of the examples of risks and issues that are impacting on those items that are then showing as red at the portfolio level. So another one of our portfolio reporting tools here, just to give you a bit of a sense of how we communicate our progress with our executive stakeholders. This view is where we summarise dependencies, key milestones, issues and risks, and our change request activities as we see date changes and scope changes coming through all of our projects and programmes. I'm going to talk about issues and risks. So the open issue RAG overview image that you can see at the top left here, we've got 29 red open issues, and just a handful of examples there. We're having portfolio level affordability challenges. There isn't enough funding from a capital and revenue perspective over the next few years for us to be able to afford to do all of the projects and programmes that are critical, where systems are going to go out of supportable life, or contracts are coming to an end and we can't extend them, and those systems then need to be replaced. There's work that we need to do to prepare for that, to then do a project to implement a replacement system and do the migration of both data and users across to those new systems. So at a portfolio level, we're really struggling. As you all know, it's difficult fiscal times at the moment with flat cash planning at the departmental level and across all organisations. And so those budgets give us problems. And that's a really significant issue that my team and I are just trying to manage our way through at the moment by really clear prioritisation of our investments, but also really clear articulation of the risks of not being able to make investments at the rate that we need to. There are some other issues you can see here. So we have a lack of overarching policy and arrangements for enablement of BYOD. For those of you who haven't heard of BYOD before, that is bring your own device. Lots of organisations, including NHS organisations in England, allow people to bring their own mobile phones, for instance, and have security software deployed to their device that will allow them to securely access patient identifiable information and give us as a sector the ability to control that device in the event that it's lost or stolen. So we don't have policy and arrangements at the moment in place for BYOD, and that's holding us back on use of personal devices to enable access to some of our major programs like Encompass. Just in the interest of time, I'll move on to our risks. So you can see the image on the left-hand side here. That's our executive dashboard for risk management. There are 8 extreme risks, the purple bit in the top right, based on our likelihood and impact assessments. So just a few examples in here of things that might go wrong for us. The DD&VR, Digital Dictation and Voice Recognition project, that's replacing technology that's end of life in SET, also is being used to access and allow clinicians to interact with the Encompass Epic application using their voice, which is a really convenient way for people to work. And we currently can't afford to make progress on that project. So that's a bit of a risk for us that might impact adoption of the Epic system. Just thinking then about how things are shaping up for next financial year, so beginning on the 1st of April of this year, the image that you can see in the top left-hand side, another one of our executive management views, that shows the capital spend forecast and revenue spend forecast. So ideally, looking at all of the technology investments that we would love to be able to make, capacity allowing, what would we need to provide in terms of a budgetary envelope? What just roughly in the top, the green layer, what do we understand is the current settlement that we're likely to get with our funders in the Department of Health for capital and revenue, and is there a gap? And as you can see, that gap grows over time, and that's the point I was making about our portfolio level funding challenges earlier. So next year, there are a set of contractually committed things that we're doing that we will continue to do. Really critical, really important investment projects, Encompass, LIMS, NIPACs, I've talked about all of those already today. Blood production and tracking, Equip, NIDIS, GMS ICT for our GP colleagues, and the interim learning management system's got some spend next year as well. The Data Institute and Evolve I've included in contractually committed. They're not technically contractually committed, they're more internal revenue projects for transformation purposes, but they are on our list of high priority items that we're going to continue to pursue to get committed funding for next year. There's a set of things that we know we need to do. These are really important things, and we're in our funding conversation at the moment with our Department of Health colleagues, trying to establish a capital profile in the context of some capital pressure that we're carrying this year, in particular on the Encompass project, and the implications of that for the beginning of our capital investments next year. So the sorts of things in there are the digital dictation project I mentioned a moment ago, GP order comms, social care payments, legacy lookup and data archiving, and RISO, which are all tied to in some way to the Encompass project. End user device refresh, the strategic cyber program, cervical screening call recall and primary HPV implementation in LIMS, and GP out of hours support and maintenance for the existing systems that we use in GP out of hours. And then there's a bunch of really urgent stuff, and this is why I talked about the risk earlier, that we're probably going to struggle to fund next year. And that puts us in a pretty difficult position, and we're going to have to manage our way carefully through the risks that presents. So the infrastructure replacement program, the replacement of the drug tariff master file and reference codes, the digital workplace program, the ECR and patient travel database, DLS case management, a really important one for our colleagues in legal services and BSO, the directory of services implementation, and 24/7 support. There's a range of things there that we just need to try and manage through dependencies and challenges. So my final question, I'm nearly done on my slides here. Why is all of this technology investment good for health and social care in Northern Ireland? And crucially, the answer to that question is these technologies help us to deliver better services to our patients and our social care clients and their care teams and their families and broader citizenry, but also it helps us to deliver a more modern experience of doing work for all of our staff members in the HSC with modern tools and computing that's an enabler for them doing their best work every day, rather than a hindrance to them being able to do their jobs effectively. The image that's on this slide is an extract from the strategy document that I'd introduced earlier, and it talks about having digital touch points for our patients with streamlined care journeys and personalised treatment plans, using cutting-edge diagnostic and treatment solutions built on world-class digital infrastructure with responsive technology projects and programs to help to deliver our overarching transformation objectives. with a service and a staff cohort that's digitally led and digitally enabled, and the use of data for insight-driven care. So that's really just at a summary level why all of the work that we're doing is so important for the whole health and social care sector. I'm going to bring my section of this presentation to a close, and I will stop sharing and just throw open initially to Dawn for any instant message chat questions that have come through, and then to the floor for anybody who wants to come off mute and ask any questions about the content I've presented here today. Thanks, guys.
Hi.
Anything?
Yes, I'm just, there's been a few come through, and well, some of them are sort of program specific. How long did it take for staff? Oh no, that's a separate one actually. Apologies. No, we just have thank yous for presentations at the minute. So there's no additional questions coming through on the chat at the minute. So open up to the floor if anyone else online has anything for Dan. Seems to be all quiet, all too shy. Or your presentation covered everything, that there's no more questions?
Yeah, I tried to pitch it so that maybe people who hadn't joined us on Digital Dispatches before would be able to understand something about the programs and projects and investments. I can see a few names on here that already work in the technology space, so it may be there wasn't too much surprising content there.
Yeah. We seem to be, there's certainly nothing coming through on the chat, and no raised hands at the minute as far as I can see. I'm rippling through some of the screens just to check.
There you go. Well, that's not a problem.
No. Oh.
What I'll do is give you 13 minutes back in your day. Oh, here we go.
We have one from Colette. Yes.
Thank you, Colette. Is there a specific program management package that you're using to run the dashboards and trackers from, or is it bespoke to your team? The tools look excellent. Well, now, I don't know who you can see on your screen, folks, but there's a lady that I can see who's smiling at me, Katie Gunning. Katie, jump off mute and talk a little bit about how we produce some of those portfolio reports.
Yeah, happy to do. So thanks, Dan. So first of all, the credit goes to a lot of the project managers who every 8 weeks submit a highlight report to us, and it may surprise you that that is on an Excel spreadsheet. We did have portfolio management tool set for about 12 months, and it has come end of this contractual arrangement. So we are now submitting, or all of the project managers do submit a standard template that was agreed through our portfolio governance on the status of the project, and that is the backbone of all of the data that Dan has been presenting and what we take through our portfolio governance every 8 weeks. And behind that, then we have what we refer to as the master spreadsheet. And then we have more recently built, using Power BI, some reporting tool sets and some of that. So the dashboard, for example, that Dan presented, was built using our Power BI tool set that we had. But it is quite a manual process, and all credit to all the project managers. And we have about 50 of them that return every 8 weeks. And do that very diligently, and periodically we change what data that we are bringing back, and the responsiveness from all our project managers has been tremendous, and then that just enables us to do just what Dan just presented. We can easily see then where the big issues are, where the trends are. We can spot the change in milestones across our milestone and overall plan. So it is quite a manual exercise. We do have a data collection tool set that has stabilized, and on top of that, we've more recently built Power BI.
We were playing around, as Katie said, with an enterprise portfolio management tool set. Just remind me what it's called. I often forget.
It's called, it was from a company called Cora, and the tool set was called Cora PPM. Some of our colleagues on the call from BSO-ITS would be familiar with using the existing PV product, largely for finance and some project manager arrangement. But we used their more recent product, PPM, for about 12 months. Used it in fair earnest, to be fair, built a lot of our good learning about standardizing and data collection and that. And we are currently, we have put through as one of our requests through the portfolio pipeline a more regional tool set for all of our project managers to use and for ourselves to build on. And so that's in the pipeline, but it'll be a little bit away. So we're quite manual at the moment.
And if Colette had any follow-up questions, Katie, could she reach out to you?
Absolutely, yeah, should have said that. Or anyone else that's here that wants to see any of the data behind and how we're doing that, happy to do that. Set up a separate section or share with that, no problem.
Thank you. A few questions come in. Eddie, thank you for your question. That's a lovely one. If I could have had a digital Christmas present from Santa, what would it have been? Well, I did get an early Christmas present from Digital Santa. The work that happened in the week that was, that week in early November, where LIMS went live in Belfast, combined LIMS and Encompass, and effectively NIPAC's phase 2 go live in SET. That was an incredibly risky set of things to do on the heels of the NIDIS work the NIDIS team had done in October. That was a massively risky set of changes. And while not everybody had a perfect experience of the journey through those implementations, and there were some initial challenges, the general perception is those things have gone really, really well. So that was an early Christmas present. What I would like, if Santa was going to come back to me, is frankly a big bag of cash, because I'd like to be able to afford probably a little bit more than we're going to be able to next year, just in terms of some of the issues that we're trying to solve with technology and some of those systems that probably really do need replacing, and the devices that we all use. I'd love to be able to fund a little bit more of that. So Eddie, I'd like Santa to bring his checkbook if he could. Is it the case that those projects that might not get funding are delayed, or is the expectation that they might get trumped by more urgent or important ones? That's a great question, Alex. Thank you. We have in portfolio tooling, we talked about it a little bit on the last one of these calls that I did in May. We have a prioritization tool set that we run not once, but actually on a regular basis, where all of the projects and investments and requirements get stacked up against one another. And then we use a series of objective measures about the relative importance, the number of staff that are going to be impacted, those sorts of measures of criticality. And we come up with a new set of prioritization measures on a regular basis, and then we apply that back into the portfolio. So if something's really important that we can't afford to do in the next few months, assuming its level of criticality doesn't change, it will continue to be an important project when we receive additional funding. And that might happen. The flat cash planning scenario that we're working to in the departments at the moment, which is obviously with the inflationary pressure on healthcare as a sector being higher than inflation in any other sector of our economy, flat cash effectively means we're taking a step back in the funding of our services. If we do see new ministers coming in potentially this month, is what we're hearing up in Stormont, then we'll have a health minister. That may include a settlement with some funding provisions for Northern Ireland at the block level, some of which will filter through and may give us a little bit more affordability and flexibility. So yeah, we do that on a regular basis, Alex. No more questions. Colette was just responding to Katie there. Anything else before we give you 5 minutes back on your first Friday in January?
I don't think so.
Super. Well, again, Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Dawn, again. And I hope you all, when you get to it, have a great weekend. Cheers,
Brilliant.
everyone.
Thank you very much, guys.